The question I'm answering on today's show was not as easy as I thought it was going to be.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time. Once again for Locked On Ducks, I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Loaded show on a Monday, as always. Explosion plays in the running game. Episode 2 of Under Construction came out. I've got plenty of thoughts. Today's going to be fun, and it's brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So my everydayers, who I appreciate very, very much, know that last week I kind of had a thought in real time as I was recording, which was, what is Oregon's toughest game in its first 4 matchups? That's very, it proved to be, I spent way longer on this than I thought I was going to, admittedly. For those who don't have Oregon's schedule memorized, they open with Montana State on August 30th, 12 days away, if you didn't remember, because we are that close. That close. Oregon's a 27.5 point favorite. And surely, when a highly ranked FCS team comes to Autzen Stadium, nothing scary has ever happened before. So, obviously, that'll be a blowout. And there was sarcasm in there, in case that wasn't clear. Oklahoma State is the Week 2 game. Mike Gundy's a really, really good coach. He has been for a long time. He's the Kyle Whittingham of the Big 12, and now they're in the same conference, of course. But he's been one of the best coaches in college football for a long time. They just had their worst season that I can remember, and I think ever in his tenure. And they've got quarterback questions. I think they're going to be improved. I don't know that they're great, but the first half could be uncomfortable. Week 3 at Northwestern, Week 4 at Oregon State. This is what it came down to for me, those 2 games. So I lean towards Oregon State by a 51-49 margin. It might be 50.5 to 40.5. Let me start with the Beavs. So the reason I put this one down as the most difficult is the rivalry factor. That is it. If this were not a rivalry game, one that is probably not going to get played next year, but hopefully will be picked up again starting in 2027, then I would not consider on paper Oregon State to be Oregon's toughest game in the first 4 of the season in the lead up to Penn State. Rivalry games just get weird. My favorite example to cite with this is St. Mary's and Gonzaga. So Gonzaga in basketball in the WCC, future member of the Pac-12, for a long time has run the conference. They've built up a national brand. They haven't broken through and won a national championship yet. Sound familiar? And they go toe-to-toe all the time with teams and programs like Kentucky or Kansas or a number of Big 12 schools. Like they have a lot of high-profile wins in the NCAA tournament and in regular season high-profile matchups every year. They play a great schedule. They've played Duke before. Like they do all of that very well. When they play St. Mary's, the Gales beat them all the time. But when the Gales go and play the high-end matchups in college basketball, they don't have as much success. They're an NCAA tournament team. They just won a game against Vanderbilt in the SEC, who is a good team this past year. But the Gales haven't been to the Sweet 16 since like 2011. But why do they know, or why are they able to beat Gonzaga? Because they know everything about it. Because there's just that different feel. And I think actually last year we saw that in the first half. It was a one-score game at the break. We saw Oregon's talent win out in the second half, but why wasn't it like that for 4 quarters? I mean, Oregon was playing on the road. I'm sure that was a factor, but it's just kind of one of those things. It's a superstition, rivalry. They can get weird and crazy, and strange things happen where teams can punch well above their weight. Oregon has a significantly more talented roster. I don't think they're going to lose that game or any of their first 4 just to be clear. But of those 4, I barely lean towards Oregon State being the toughest, even though it's at home. It would clearly be the Beavs to me if it were in Corvallis. But that brings me to the game that I think is nipping at its heels for being Oregon's toughest of the first third of the season. And that's Northwestern. Now, this is not saying a lot because Northwestern's program has not beaten a Tier 1 team in the Big Ten for quite some time. Like 2017-18, when Pat Fitzgerald was still there, they beat some ranked Wisconsin and Michigan State teams. But their track record against Ohio State and Michigan, when those programs are where they're supposed to be, where Oregon expects to be this year in the conference championship discussion, Northwestern has not been able to get to that level. You could make a pretty solid argument. And look, I got this close. I was writing an article for 750 The Game about this very topic. And as I was writing it, I almost changed my opinion. I just didn't want to overlook the rivalry factor and the fact that the Beavs are going to get up for that game as much as they will for any game in the entire season. That's a game I think they will empty the playbook. They will do everything that they can to win that football game because it would mean so much to them. Not that every team doesn't want to win and whatnot, but like in 2021, Oregon, I think, was saving a few things for Ohio State, and they almost lost to Fresno State as a result. Sometimes it seems from afar, just a media guy's observation there, it seems like sometimes coaches can save that sort of stuff. So, Northwestern, though, is interesting for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, that game is going to kick off at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's weird. That means wake-up calls are going to be around 6 a.m. Pacific time. Maybe Oregon gets there an extra day early to try to get acclimated to the time zone there in Chicago. But that is going to be an 11 a.m. local time kickoff. I believe Chicago's on Central Time. 9 a.m. Pacific. Oregon has not done that before. Unless I'm missing a game, that will be the earliest kickoff of an Oregon football game in my life. Now I'm here for it because that means that I'll be able to watch the game, get you guys a reaction pod, and then go call the Southern Utah game without having any conflict there. But that is going to be strange. They also brought in Preston Stone at quarterback, who last started a couple of years ago for SMU in their final year in the American. He went for almost 3,200 yards on 60% completion, 28 touchdowns, and 6 picks. He was then kind of replaced. They went back and forth for a while, and Kevin Jennings is their guy now. But last year, Northwestern went 4-8. They won 2 conference games against Maryland and Purdue. Not exactly heavy hitters of the league. They bring back around 60% of their production from a season ago. Not bad. Preston Stone could be a game changer for him and make the game at least more interesting. And I'm just going to throw this one out there. They're playing at a temporary stadium because they're building a new one. It's on the road. I don't know what that environment's going to be like. It could be a 2021 Stanford. Now, Dan Lanning's the head coach, not Mario Cristobal. So I'm not anticipating that. And again, these are high-class problems for Oregon to have. When I'm talking about which of the games can be the most difficult, I view that as which game is going to be the closest, not which one do I think Oregon is going to lose, because I expect them to be 4-0. But weird stadium, early kickoff time, first road game for Dante Moore. I don't know what the environment will be like. It'll certainly be a big early season ticket game for Northwestern. And yes, Northwestern's got plenty of fans, just like everybody else in the Big Ten. They might not have the biggest stadium or the biggest fan base, but I've seen Oregon go play in a strange environment and have at an academic power and just go out and underperform. So I almost got there, but Oregon State's got Malik Murphy at quarterback. He was one of the best QBs to move in the portal in the entire country. Trent Bray is going into his second year. Think about how big of a jump Dan Lanning took from year 1 to year 2. Trent Bray is going to have the opportunity to do that with Oregon State. They've got a decent amount of their team coming back from last year. They certainly have to fix some things, but quarterback is a big part of that, and I think Malik Murphy is pretty darn good. So I lean Oregon State just by a hair, but I'm curious. Maybe you guys feel like it's Oklahoma State. Maybe you think it's Montana State. Hey, We literally just saw it happen last year. So I don't think there's any wrong answer, but I want to hear what your answer is. Drop them in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. Let's talk ground game and what it needs to do this year for the Ducks. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes or on the golf course, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I'm about to go back to Utah for the SU sports season, and it's a lot hotter there than it is in Oregon right now where I'm recording the show. So when I go out on the golf course, which I will be doing in Utah later this week, it's going to be close to 100 degrees. If I don't keep myself hydrated while I'm on the course, I'm going to struggle, and then I'm not in a good mood, and I don't care for that. And we all want to play better golf, and this Drip Drop is a way to do that because I've got to be able to stay hydrated. That's what they are all about. Right now, Drip Drop's offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. I already have. You should too at dripdrop.com. Ginger tea for the second segment sip today, for those of you who are wondering. And I know that some of you are. And I appreciate you all for that, and love that some of you legitimately care about the second segment sip. It's important. It's important. Oregon's running game is important. That isn't new. This question came in from Coastal Bend Fish Ninja. Nice. I was in Bend over the weekend a couple times. Great city. Spencer, have a random running back question for you. Do we have any home run hitters in the running back room? Like top end breakaway speed, take it to the house guys. Who's the fastest in the room? I can go down the list, and most of them don't have home run speed. Does Dink Riggs or Dr. Hill maybe? So there was a clip, I believe it was of Dr. Hill, on the most recent episode of Under Construction, the docuseries that's following Oregon throughout fall camp. I presume we'll get another one this week. We'll get another one next week. Then the games will begin, and we'll be back to Ducks versus them. Can't wait. Shout out the Oregon social team. They're crushing it as always. So in the room, Dr. Hill might have the most high-end speed. I haven't been able to go to practice and, clock them all with their 40 times to answer this question. So sorry I can't give you that level of detail. But I think Mekhi Hughes has that ability. I wouldn't describe him as a LaMichael James, Kenyon Barner, DeAnthony Thomas, Charles Nelson type. I think Mekhi Hughes, stylistically, when he runs, I don't think he's quite as big, but I think he's going to remind you a lot of Royce Freeman. He's going to be incredibly well balanced. He'll hit the big runs. He'll have enough speed. I mean, you can find plenty of clips of him breaking long runs in the American last year. And I know the American is not the Big Ten. Certainly. The American is a darn good conference, though. And I think that for Hughes, he is going to be running behind an offensive line that has 4 transfers, and Poncho, who, as we saw in episode 2, that I'll talk about later on the show, is definitely one of the leaders on this team, and that makes sense going into his second year starting at center. But I think in the running back room, Bucky Irving had that breakaway sort of speed. You can think of a lot of big runs that he had in that 2023 season. The 2022, he had the Holiday Bowl, the big run against Washington State. There were a couple other big ones in there. Anyway, going back to your question here. I don't know if the guys that have the most speed are necessarily at the top of the depth chart. So Hughes is fast. He's fast enough to break those big runs. But I think the sort of speed and play that you are envisioning is more of a LaMichael James style, is more of a Kenyon Barner style, where, as Gus Johnson has said before, if I'm even, I'm leaving. And last year, for the first few games, and I was talking about the first 4 games earlier. Obviously, one of the biggest things I will be watching through those matchups in the lead up to that Penn State showdown on September 27th, are they able to create explosives in the run game? Because their inability to do that, or just consistently be successful on the ground against Ohio State, was a huge part of why the Rose Bowl was an issue. Well, when you trace that back to how the ground game progressed throughout the season, they weren't really creating big lanes. They weren't getting running backs to the second and third level enough. It's not like they were getting pushed back all the time. But one of the best games that Oregon played offensively last year was when Jordan James went crazy in the first half against Michigan State. I think he had like 120 yards or something at the half. People were looking up what's the Oregon single game rushing record or single half rushing record. And then, Michigan State made their adjustments in the second half. Oregon would have been up 35-0 at the break against the Michigan State team that wasn't that good. I think they went 5-7 last year. But they would have been up 35-0 if Dylan Gabriel hadn't thrown a pair of red zone interceptions. And as it was, they were still up 21-0. So, well, why don't we presume 1 touchdown, 1 field goal? Fine. 31-0. They would have been up 31-0 at the break if not for a couple of red zone interceptions. So that was the first game where Jordan James had a run. I think it was over 15 yards. I don't know that that's going to be, a big feature of the run game this year. I would love for it to be. And, these are, again, first world problems, which Oregon has a lot of in the football sense. These are first world running back problems, because I've also seen Noah Whittington break his fair share of long runs. Took a kick to the house last year against Boise State. One of his best runs ever. What was it? 2022 against Arizona. He had like a 55, 60-yard touchdown run. Those are the sorts of plays I want to see. And no, Whittington and Mekhi Hughes are not speed demons that are big home run hitters and you're expecting them to try to just get to the edge. They will run between the tackles. But do they have enough speed to break long runs? Yeah, I think they do. So I'm interested to see what Dink Riggs could be in the future, or De'Aaron Hill. But yeah, if they wanted a speed guy in there, De'Aaron Hill might be the fastest. I don't know. I would love to see the running backs line up and just race, see who would come out on top. De'Aaron Hill would certainly have a chance. That was the scouting report on him coming out of high school. So Monica sends this one in. Hi, Spencer, old lady here again. Hey, all are welcome, as long as you're a Duck fan. How in the world do we continue to build a great team if every year good or great players leave for the NFL? Well, I talk about recruiting a lot on this show, Monica. And the reason I do that, and the reason that I get excited, or many of you get excited, when Oregon picks up notable recruiting wins on the trail, is because while you may not get the immediate payoff on the field, they always come around eventually. And you don't always know who, but because it's not going to be everyone. Everybody that Oregon recruits over the years, not going to finish their careers with the Ducks. They're not always going to be huge impact players. But the importance of high school recruiting in particular, transfers matter too, but the importance of high school recruiting is so that when Oregon does lose a record number of players to the NFL draft as they did this past season, they have guys that are waiting in the wings ready to go. Think about Kenyon Sadiq. Last year, Kenyon Sadiq, and maybe even as a true freshman, he could have started games for a number of teams in the Big Ten. You lose your tight end to the NFL because he's out of eligibility, second round caliber guy. You could get even more out of the tight end position this year. That's what people like me talk about with regards to why recruiting matters and being able to go from one era of players to the next and not have that big of a drop-off. Experience matters. I talk about that plenty here on the show. But the answer is, because Oregon is run by a staff that knows how to recruit really well, because they have plenty of NIL dollars to go around, because they are focused on high school talent acquisition. Not every program is, by the way. Colorado's trying to ascend to the top of the Big 12. They're just not recruiting high school kids. They bring in like less than 10. Let me see if I can find the number here. I didn't prep that right before. Okay, so they're in their 2025 class. They've got 15 enrollees. I think that's the biggest high school class compared to 33 transfers. In 2024, they brought in 12 enrollees, and they brought in that year 43 transfers. In 2026, at the moment, Colorado has 11 commits. That's not horrifically bad, but is it a super highly rated class? Are they going after that as aggressively as they should? No, they are not. So Oregon's ability to both commit to recruiting, succeed in recruiting, and bring kids in via the portal is how you be a reload program every year rather than a window program. And I think Oregon has set themselves up in that to where, as I say repeatedly, the playoff expectation is annual. It's not every third year like it is, kind of up at Washington, for instance. They can get there. I think Jed Fish can get them there. But it takes them a while. Compared to Oregon, it's, just lost a bunch of guys, just lost a bunch of NFL players, still expect to go right back to the playoff this year and be in the national championship picture. So the short answer to your question, Monica, recruiting. Turns out it matters. Sometimes it takes a while to come full circle and get the payoff of, that's why it was important we get that guy. But right now, you go back to when Oregon landed Kenyon Sadiq, that's going to feel pretty important this year. So he popped up in episode 2. So did Dante Moore. So did a potential starter that I'm okay seeing. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize you want to be in the stands instead of watching on TV. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. If you're tired of the endless scrolling trying to find the best deal, Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, and yes, guaranteed. I'm sure some of you are wondering, Spencer, are you going to have trivia on today's show? Pfft, of course. Of course I'm going to have trivia on the show. I haven't decided if trivia is going to continue during the season. I feel like there will be too many things I'd want to talk about. I haven't made a decision on that yet. But let me know. Shoot me some messages. And let me know if you'd like it to continue throughout the season. Or if you'd rather I focus on what's happening. Or maybe, the season goes off the rails and we'd rather think about something else. You never know. So, episode 2 of Under Construction was released last week. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really fun. A few takeaways. I'll start with a starter that I was dissecting the video of sorts because there's not a lot of media access given by the Oregon coaching staff. This is what we do. We get hey, I'm here for it, man. It works. It looks like Alex Harkey is going to start at right tackle. Now, many moons ago on this program, Eric Scopel and I of 24/7 Sports and the Odds and Audibles podcast, he and I were both picking kind of breakout players potentially in the springtime. And I took one of his, and it was Janoris Wilson. And I still think Janoris Wilson has a role to play on this offensive line. I think he's the first offensive tackle off the bench. I think he is the jumbo tackle when Oregon goes to 13 personnel, 1 back and 3 tight ends. And if one of the tackles God forbid, were to go down, Janoris Wilson's probably the first guy there. I thought he could battle to start at right tackle, but it looked like there were several snaps or reps that I saw on Under Construction episode 2 with what looked like the first team offense, and it was Alex Harkey at right tackle, Bedford at right guard, Poncho at center, Pranon at left guard, and Isaiah World at left tackle. So the reason I said earlier I'd be okay with a starter is, it's fun to make predictions like that are kind of under the radar a little bit and then come to fruition. And I thought that one had a solid chance of panning out. Looks like Harkey will start. I think Oregon's in a really good spot either way there, because I like Janoris Wilson. I mean, if you want to feel good about Wilson, go find his highlights of the in the Big Ten championship game. When Oregon went jumbo in the goal line, Janoris Wilson was moving dudes around. So, Dante Moore is really fast. And, he mentioned that earlier. He said in a postseason or in a post-practice media availability that he topped out at 21.5 miles per hour. There were clips of him and D'Air Hill bolting down the field. And, it made me wonder. I got a question about this when it first popped up in the news cycle, and someone asked, like, is this, he going to be a big part of the offense running? And I don't think so. I don't think that's how he's wired. He's mobile. Every now and then we'll see him scramble for a first down. I don't think you're going to see him run like, Anthony Brown or Tyler Shuck ran a pretty good amount. I don't think you're going to see that. But man, he's not slow. He is not slow. And maybe EA College Football 26 is right to make him hilariously fast. He feels like Bo Nix when you play with him. So those two things stood out. The throw from Dante Moore to Kenyon Sadiq. Oh man, I might just mention that every day on the show. Moore is drifting to his left. He's listing lazily to the left. If you get that reference, please shoot me a message, because you are a sicko just like me. He's drifting left, and he just flicks it. The arm talent is so crazy, and then Sadiq is pretty well covered, and he goes up and makes a catch in the end zone, and it's just like, man, that looks awesome. I'm so excited for football season. Another thing, Noah Whittington looks good. Mentioned him earlier, man. Last year, Noah Whittington, there was first half Noah and there was second half Noah. First half Noah was, when does Jordan James get back on the field? Second half Noah was, do we even need Jordan James? Rhetorical question, of course. Jordan James was great. But, man, Whittington looks fast, physical, strong. He's in on it, man. So this episode was all about building forward. I really I enjoy all these episodes. They're great. They give you great access. But, something they showed a lot in this episode that I really appreciated. College sports are fun. And, not every headline is fun. Go listen to my rant on Locked On College Football for the first segment today. A 24 to 2018 playoff. It makes me want to throw up in my mouth. But not keep it there, obviously. I'm recording too late at night. This is going to get off the rails really quickly to end today's show. Anyway, college sports are fun, and it's awesome to see these guys, bonding in a lot of different settings and just going out and having a good time. I appreciated that because as someone who, does play-by-play for all the sports at Southern Utah, I see a lot of those dynamics, and a lot of fans don't. You don't see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, or when they're just hanging, or, like I travel with Southern Utah's football team. When we go have team dinners, they're a blast. They can be a blast. Guys are in a good mood. They're yanking each other's chain, messing around, doing all that sort of stuff. And then they went and got ice cream. Think about this with ice cream. Everybody likes ice cream. Everybody doesn't like every flavor. Everybody likes some flavor of ice cream. Being lactose intolerant doesn't count. It's crazy, right? Everybody likes some type of ice cream. Anyway, that was featured in the episode. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on YouTube and Twitter. So, the longest NFL career of all time, it appears it was Dan Fouts. I didn't remember if I mentioned that on Friday's show. Last time I was one off. There have been 10 college football playoffs excluding 2020. Using the 5-11 model last year, a 6-10 plan previously. How many times would Oregon have made the playoffs? I said 6. The answer was 7 because 2021 would have gotten in at 9-3. No, 10-2. They were 10-2 that year. I think I forgot that 2022 would have gotten in at 9-3. Yeah. All right, today's trivia question. Who was the all-time winningest coach in win percentage numbers? For Oregon coaches, obviously. I also got, I didn't ask for the help, but there was a follow-up from the person who sent me this trivia clue, and it's not who you think. Well, who I think would be Chip Kelly. So, highest win percentage ever. Rich Brooks had to go through some, shall we say, slower years as far as winning goes. Bellotti won a lot. It's not who you think. I mean, it can't be Willie Taggart. That was 7-5, so no. Oh! I bet. No, but there were more losses in Helfrich's last season than Chip had in 4 years. Chip lost 7 games, right? 12-1, 11-2, I think, or 12. Yeah, Chip lost 7 games. Huh. It's not who you think. Also, who was the all-time winningest coach in win percentage numbers? Who was? Past tense. Meaning it can't be the Danimal either. I don't think it's Mario. Mike Bellotti. I'll go with Mike Bellotti while thinking in the back of my head, what if it's Len Casanova? But I'll go with Mike Bellotti. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Till then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.